More you say.
Coming up.
Come up now. Can't stop me.
You coming up.
Well, hello everyone. Come on in and join us. Come on in and join us. We are live. It is time for House of Peach. We have a great show on tonight. We hope and pray that so far this week has been great. I know it's only Tuesday, but your Monday could have been stressful and today could be good. But we are here. So when you come on, do us a favor. Come in the comments and say hello. Tell us where you're tuning in from so we can welcome you, so we can acknowledge you on this evening. I'm April Anderson. Y'all know me already. I think my name is there. Okay, so you know who I am. I don't have to introduce myself. But look at my beautiful co-host. That's my sister, my friend. I love her. Hey,
Howdy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. This has been
Good.
a really good day. So
Good.
I'm good. I'm really like gotten over a hump of emotional stuff going on. So now I'm on the other side of it. It's good when you get revelation about things and you get
Yes.
understanding and clarity. And it's like, oh, okay. So now I'm good. I'm good. So I'm ready to move forward. So I'm good. How are you though?
Good. I am okay, trying to get things in order. I have a birth coming up this weekend out of
Okay.
state. So this is actually going to be, yes, my first time flying out. So I am
Without the
super excited.
boys?
Yes, without the boys, Josiah was like, "Is there any way you could sneak me in like your backpack?" And I was like,
Oh,
"Dude," he was like, "How about dress me up like a dog?" Like, I don't know. He was like, "Put some ears on me, something, put me in the kennel down below. Just take me with you."
oh. And how long are you going to be gone?
So, like midweek, just a couple of days. But
Okay.
like, yeah,
But it's
I
life
mean,
to him.
but yeah, I was like, but I mean, it's gonna be. I feel like it's going to be quick. You know what I
Okay.
mean? Not a long drawn out. I'm excited about this birth. Near and dear.
Is your first one out of state?
I think technically, yeah, because all my other. Well, I mean, technically, my first birth was in like New Jersey, and I was living in Delaware. But yeah, like this one to like actually fly to, yes, yes,
Oh
yes,
my, how
yeah,
exciting. So then
yeah.
that starts the catalyst. That's the ball starts it rolling to you go doing more out of state. So then you come
Absolutely.
into Georgia next month.
Yes. And then I'll be in Georgia next month. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it just really sunk in for my husband when I was like, yeah, so I'm leaving this weekend. And he's like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, like it's time. And it's not like we hadn't been talking about this before, but
Right.
just the same as it is, I'm sure, like being pregnant, it like time flies by. And then like when it's time, it's like, whew, it's here.
Yeah.
It was like it's like that, having to travel. So yeah, I'm excited. I am excited to go, to Georgia as well for next month. So that'll be
And
like a nice little reprieve for me.
I won't even be there. It depends on when you come in because she's due. So, for those of you that don't know, my oldest daughter is getting ready to have her third baby, my third grandchild. I know I don't look like I should be a Mimi, but I am. But she's due on the 26th, and I will be in Key West because I leave on the 20th. And so I won't
Okay.
be back until either the 25th or the 26th. She'll probably be delivered by then.
You think so?
I don't know. She doesn't take long. Hey, Jackie.
I
Hey,
that's it.
Carla.
We
Hey,
did have that. We
Barbie.
did have that conversation, but
Mhm.
I was like, it really is just that I always ask, like, so how you feeling? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because honestly, sometimes that mother's intuition, or conversations, like I totally told Noah when to come. Like Josiah had a play on the day that he was due. And I was like,
Right.
I am not missing opening night on the first night that my baby has a speaking part.
Right.
No. So I was like, okay, so I at least need to get to this time. And so I was like, hey, babe, do this, do that. I did a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I went to sleep. I woke up 1 o'clock in the morning, and then bang, boom.
Right.
Baby was here by 10:16. So that was better. So
that really, I'm glad to hear you say that, because Cameron, the second grandson, his due date was my birthday.
Oh yeah.
And they were giving me a birthday party, right? And I got to her stomach and I said, "Don't you dare ruin this birthday party. Don't you come out. You stay in." Well, she didn't go into labor. She came to the party. I kid you not, the next day,
Yep.
I got back to her stomach. I said, "Okay, baby, you can come out now." She immediately went into labor.
Yeah.
Right in the same day.
Absolutely.
I was like, yo, that's wild.
They absolutely listen. They absolutely listen. At the point in time with my first that they were, so actually that's funny that you say that, because so my oldest due date was the end of July, like July 30th, July 31st, something like that. And his father and I were like, yeah, no, I kind of think he's going to be like the end of June. And my mom was like, well, he better not be on my birthday, because her birthday is on the 27th. She was like, don't do it. Don't do it. Well, wouldn't you know that I was like, I feel like there needs to be a baby shower kind of early. So I threw one, or actually a good friend of mine, or a couple of friends of mine from work ended up throwing me a baby shower. We had it at a park, ended up getting rained out. So it was like most of like my friends and stuff like that came to this one. This was like June 13th. I ended up going into labor on the 24th. My grandmother had a baby shower planned for the 25th. My son was born on the 25th. My grandmother was like, I will never plan you another baby shower again in my life. Because who has a baby on their baby shower day?
Wow. Hey,
I cracked up laughing because I naturally went into labor. I didn't do anything. I, had been dilating a little early. I had a very healthy pregnancy, but for whatever reason, I went in, to labor when I did. And it might have been because we kept saying, nah, this is a baby that's coming at the end of the month, at the end of June. And that's exactly what happened. So
get into existence.
Exactly. Be careful what you say over, yourself and your babies, and how many you want and what you want and all that kind of thing. Because I know I prayed for all boys. That's exactly what I have.
Well, hey, I'm going to say this clearly. I'm good. Don't need anything else. No more. I'm good. Now I let the kids, y'all do what y'all gonna do. I am good. Thank you, Nicole. She said, congratulations. Yeah, I'm good. I don't want. I don't see how women do it later in life and have babies later in life. Like, I'm at this stage now where I don't want to lug a car seat, a diaper bag, go through the whole potty training, getting up in the middle of the night. Oh my God, no. I travel too much for that.
So the funny thing you say that, because that's exactly why I tell people I would be the most amazing surrogate. Because that's all the things that I don't want to do. But I will surely go through all of that extra just to be able to give someone the gift of a child, if you know what I mean. Because it's not mine. Like I can carry it for you.
I would love to have a couple of surrogate moms on here, because I have some questions.
Oh, we're gonna do it. Oh my goodness.
I would love that, because I have questions about that. And I know how attached I get. And even though it would be someone else's baby, would have nothing to do with me, I have a connection because you in my body. Yo, you growing in my body.
Most definitely.
Yeah, but we need to do that. We need to do that. Charles said,
I'm all for it, because I feel like I have a whole lot of questions before I really decide that this is what I'm going to do. Everywhere that I've looked in the research that I have done, the women who have done it, like they speak very highly of it. As far as the experience is concerned, they are very real when it comes to that attachment or that feeling of loss. There's just one lady I remember reading, like she gets a dog for everyone. So she's got like 4 dogs right now. Like she started out with just a puppy, and then she was a surrogate like 3 times. So she bought a dog every time she, gave birth, just to kind of feel like she was still filling that hole. But I think it really depends on what your motive is or your reasoning behind it too. And I think like it would be harder for me if it was something like an egg donation for me versus I think surrogacy, because I think I just already instinctively, I guess know how to kind of like shut certain things off. I think I can make decisions for something without necessarily getting attached. But that's not to say that, I mean, I get attached to all my doula babies. I didn't even carry them. You know what I mean? Like, and I love to see them. I love to get pictures. I feel like they're my babies. I feel like I had 22 babies last year. Like it was great. And then when I get to see them, it's like, I feel like there's a connection with that as well. But it's wonderful to not have to do all of that. You know what I mean? I had a wonderful breastfeeding journey. I had a horrible breastfeeding journey. I've had, I think, spectrum as far as like the birth and the postpartum situations. So that I can handle. It's just after. No.
I'm looking forward to having a couple of surrogate moms on here. I really want to have that conversation. Not that I'm interested at all, but I'm just,
yeah. I mean, listen, if the spirit ever moves, I've got a few years left for you. I can most definitely be a surrogate for you if that's what you.
Girl,
and you make me a play date.
I don't have a problem with the carrying. My body does crazy stuff when I'm pregnant, so I end up on bed rest. That's not what I'm worried about. Concern. My concern is after the hospital stay, and I got to bring this sucker home. Like, oh, I got to get up with you. Like, wait a minute, you want to eat again?
Yes. Well, no. See, and this is why you have a doula. Okay.
Why?
Little shameless plug real quick, but I am big on postpartum period and your support system. That's the live-in people, as well as the people who are going to call, the people who are trying to come over, the people who want to see the baby, your mama, your whoever. Okay. Everybody has a job because they are your birth team at the end of the day. Okay. So I am all about teaching fathers how to be able to latch these babies while mom is sleeping, because guess what? If she don't sleep, then she cranky. If she don't sleep, then your pockets end up having to come out for that Similac. And I don't think you really want to do that. So let's make sure that she gets that sleep and hydration that she needs. And while she's sleeping, make sure you get into that kitchen and warm up some of them, meals that we done prepped, so that she's eating intentionally to make sure that she's got that good quality milk growing. Okay. Like when I say,
well, I'm going to say this. I don't know how we got on the topic of babies, but we're going to get off this topic, okay?
Yes, we are. Because listen,
no more babies.
Listen, we've decided to double whammy you guys for today. You know what I mean? And it's one of those like, ooh.
So we have a
goodness.
a
whole lot of little everything. Yes, right. Exactly. So both of these women are absolutely amazing, very sweet spirits and powerhouses in their own right. They have amazing stories to tell, and how they got into entrepreneurship, exactly what they're doing, and to share some real life experiences. So without further ado, I don't know. I was like, we can bring them both on. We can do one at a time. Production, y'all are on it. But we've got a Barbie and Sela.
Hello.
Hey, Barbie, how are you?
Hey, I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, Sela, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Great. I'm super excited to have you guys today.
Oh my
so
God.
Happy to be here.
And so interesting, actually, if we do get into it, the Bell's palsy actually is very common in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. So there you go. I mean, maybe you were connecting it even before we got started.
See, there you go. Don't you, by now, April, we know everything that goes on in this show is just very divinely orchestrated. And it's always somehow intertwined. And honestly, in the 2 conversations that I had beforehand and talking to these ladies, I was like, oh my gosh, I absolutely love them. They are going to be great for the show. And I feel like I kind of like, this here is where I get attached. They're like friends afterwards. And I'd be like, I can't wait to, like, when I come to your, to your city, like, I definitely plan on, getting to see you.
Oh, for sure. I'm the same way every time, I go on a podcast. It's too bad that we're not in person and we can't go out for a drink after. That's for sure.
I know. But no, we will orchestrate something like that. And then we'll go live and you guys get to see that as well. We'll do a tour.
We need to plan a big event and have all our guests like just fly in and we're all going to get together. That would be good.
That would be absolutely amazing. Well, listen, either one of you guys can be able to start. For right now, I was like, just give a little bit about yourselves, introduce yourself, where are you from? And I guess like, let's shake it up a bit. Give us 3 interesting facts about yourself.
Love it. Love it.
Barbie, you want to go first?
Sure. Let's see. I mean, I'm not sure if you'll find it interesting at all, but I have 2 sons, 18 and 16, who are lacrosse players. So same thing. I'm definitely done in the baby department. I had Bell's palsy in 2015 on the left side of my face, which is sudden onset paralysis. And I just recently started my podcast called The Real Talk with Barbie. So there's 3 interesting things about me.
Cool.
Well, it's nice to meet you, Barbie. My name is Selah Christensen, and I am from Washington State, but I currently live in Utah. We just moved here a couple of years ago when my husband got a new job here. We were in agriculture. I grew up in agriculture. My husband grew up in agriculture. And in fact, here's a fun fact. Our parents live across the street from each other. But my husband and I are 9 years apart. So we grew up in different times. And I was just finishing high school, and then he came home and took over his dad's business, and that's when we kind of rekindled or like reignited our friendship. And we had gone on vacations together growing up and stuff like that. I was friends with his youngest sister. So that's kind of how that came to be. But he got out of agriculture, and we decided to come to Utah, and we have loved it. I have 3 girls. I have an 8-year-old, she's almost 8. Next week she'll be 1, or she'll be 8. And then it's funny that you mentioned that earlier about the birth date thing, because my 2 oldest daughters, one's born on April 1st and the other is born on April 2nd. And I was like, you are not coming on the same day. And my husband was like, why not? And I was like, they can't have the same birthday. They each get their own day. If it has to be this time of year, they at least get their own time of day, or they're each day. So anyway. And then I have a 3rd girl, and she is 3. So I feel like I shared more than 3 facts there. So I'll just.
It's all good. It's all good. Nice to meet you too.
Yes. So we are happy to have the both of you on and the discussions that we're going to have. I know I'll have some questions. So Morgan, I'm going to let you kind of, however you want to roll with that. I usually take over, and I try not to do that.
No, listen, I did like a pre-interview, so I know a lot of things. So I was like, you can just dive right in, and I'll just kind of interject because, I might know a juicy tidbit or 2. Like I definitely wanted, Selah to give the story about how she met her husband, because I thought that was like very interesting as well. And it's just like all in the family. But yeah, exactly. So I was like, go right on ahead. I know for Barbie, I would like, here's an or a different type of question. What's it like having now started a podcast, being on a podcast? Like, I mean, I'm sure that you have been a guest on other podcasts before, but now that you've got your own, how, do you find that different?
Well, I love guesting on podcasts, and I've been doing it for quite a few years. I also do a lot of Instagram lives on my community. It's called Bell's Palsy Talk. But it is quite different when you're doing your own podcast, just with all the, the editing work and just having the commitment to get it up after. It's one thing when you're guesting that you can just, like right now, you come on, you chat. Well, that's great. That was fun. And then someone else does all the work, which is always nice. But having your own podcast, there is that part where you need to make sure that you're doing the follow-up after and the work and getting it off to the editor and things like that. I am looking forward to having guests on my podcast. I've done 2 solo episodes so far and just kind of getting all the platforms ready so that I can have guests and everything on my platform. It's very exciting.
Awesome.
So I want to get into your diagnosis and how early on did you start seeing symptoms to make you think like, wait a minute, something's going on before you were able to get that completely diagnosed? What were you experiencing?
Well, when you look back, I can kind of see that things were kind of coming along. It was a Monday when I came down with it. Bell's palsy is sudden onset though. So you wake up and it's, you don't feel it coming on. It can get progressively worse in 24 to 48 hours. So when I look back, I can see like on the Friday, my ear was bugging me inside. It felt like, your ear's itchy, how it gets when you're getting a cold or a virus, but nothing that would have been a red flag. Bell's palsy is from a virus. So those are the things where there's unfortunately no tips that I could tell somebody that's like, hey, you know what, this happens to you, make sure you get to the hospital right away and get the medication. When I look back, I can kind of see things were happening. I wasn't feeling well. I was run down, but nothing that was out of the ordinary.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So you were diagnosed in 2015, you said, right? So how does it affected you since then? Because you seem like, hey, you great, you vibrant and all of that. Do you have moments where you are the symptoms? Because I don't know. I mean, I'm in the medical field, but I don't know a whole lot about the condition. So I don't know all the ins and out, the days in and day out, and how you would feel if you have your up and down days with that. So can you go into that some?
Yeah, for sure. So I can just run through really quickly kind of the Coles notes of Bell's palsy. It is from a virus, a similar strain of the virus as cold sores, shingles, herpes, that kind of virus. And what it does is it attacks this nerve right here on the side of your face. The main nerve is the 7th cranial nerve, it's called. And all the nerves on this side of your face and this side of your face are a perfect spider web. So if it attacks this one, then it's only on this side. So basically what it does is it paralyzes that, it damages the nerves, and then they will slowly come back. Some people just, 4 to 6 weeks, totally fine. You wouldn't even know the difference. Some people get impacted with synkinesis, it's called, and that's what I have. So if you do look at my face when I'm speaking straight on, you can see that my mouth is not perfectly symmetrical anymore, and my eye gets a little bit active here. That's called synkinesis. So the nerves didn't grow back properly. And some of the nerves say they grew back to the eye. They think they're a mouth nerve so that when I'm talking, they're active. So that's what synkinesis is. And those are the kinds of things that, can affect people. Now, I am very lucky. I came back they figure 85 to 90%. Like you say, a lot of people don't really know unless I point it out. But yeah, there are effects, on my daily life. Of course, it's hard sometimes. Pictures, I do miss my smile like I used to have that was perfectly symmetrical and things like that. But I am very grateful that I did come back as much as I did. A lot of people don't. So, I choose to see it that way. And then I also choose to, speak out. I have, like I said, on Instagram, it's called Bell's Palsy Talk. And I have other survivors of Bell's palsy come on and tell their story, which is very empowering to use your voice that way.
I can imagine the effect that it has on you emotionally, because you were once where nothing was wrong, and then all of a sudden this has come, and so it's changed everything. Do you find, how are they, the community, the people out in society when you go out? Because I know, people look or say something or however. How has that been?
For me personally, I haven't experienced it too much. When it was early on and I was still in recovery, I would get people like you know, when you go to a party and they've hired a photographer and they're posing or whatever, and they'll say, "Oh, smile, come on, how come you're not smiling?" And until I relearned a smile, I didn't smile much, because your face, you know, so you need to learn how to re-smile. You know, I smile more with my mouth closed now as opposed to my mouth open. And a lot of people are very, very traumatized by things like that, by comments like that, or, you know, "Oh, what's going on with your face?" or "What's wrong?" And a lot of people in the communities that I'm involved in, you know, mostly online, they are very affected by things like that. So it is something that is, you know, for us in general to just be aware that those things are out there, and people do have facial paralysis. I know also there's a big movement for a lot in Europe where they have, I shouldn't laugh, but they do have issues where, because your speech is that sometimes, you know, if you're out at the pub or something, they'll think that you've had too much to drink when you haven't. And so some of them, will have, you know, cards, or I think it's a card that you can show them that you say, you know, "I have this condition that, you know, that affects that." So those are the things that are starting to come up, you know, just to make people more aware, because as you said, April, earlier, even people in the medical field, it's not that common. So common, but not that common. So that's why it's important to speak up and use platforms like this to spread the word about it, so people can be like, "Oh, that's interesting. Let me look into what that is even."
Right. And it's funny that you were talking about the seventh, and I'm not going to get too deep in medicine, but I love it. I was just teaching my students today about the seventh cranial nerve and how it does spider web out and where it leads to in the different areas and the 5 branches there. So to hear you say that, I was like, "Oh my God, I was just talking about that today with my students." So, wow, that is, with the way society is and the way people are, you know, some are not as understanding, but it's good to raise awareness about things, because there are different conditions that come up or situations where people need to know so they don't make assumptions. So I never thought about the, you know, having the card say, "Hey, I have this condition," because I would, he personally would have never thought that someone would think you were already inebriated and you're not.
Right.
You're like, "I just had one glass. What are you talking about? This one little glass is not doing it." So I understand that. So that led you to start your podcast.
So in COVID, I really missed. So I used to run dance competitions with my mom and my sister, and we had to close down during COVID, and I really missed being on stage. So my husband said, "You know, why don't you start, you know, talking about Bell's palsy?" So I did, and I really enjoyed it. Now, at first, I was doing videos, and then, but what was happening was they weren't live, and the editing was really holding me back, because then I'm sure you guys have all experienced that, where you're editing it and then you're like, "Oh, I don't want to look at myself. I don't want to hear myself." And then it never got done. So the Instagram lives was a great way for me to be live, to have an audience, for people to tell their stories, and then it just posts right away. So that I really enjoyed doing that and bringing people together and letting them, you know, speak their truth and share their story. It's really nice to be able to.
Yeah. So how often are you on with your podcast? Do you do that once a week or a couple of times a week?
Once a week is the goal. And right now, you know, like I said, I'm just getting rolling, so I'm a little bit behind in that, but that's the goal, you know, once a week. Now with the podcast, I've kind of progressed on to just to talk about real topics. What I was finding is I was talking about Bell's palsy, but I was wanting to talk about somatic healing and self-care and all those kinds of things. So in the podcast, we'll talk about, you know, more wider topics, which hopefully people from the Bell's palsy community will take advantage of as well. Because I'm not a medical practitioner, there's a lot of things, like I would have medical doctors come on and speak, which I'm happy to do and share, because I'm a talker and a sharer. But I wasn't sharing a lot of medical information, you know, because you want to be careful not to say the wrong thing or information. So I'm really excited to just have a more broad topic base to be talking about for the future.
Well, that's what Morgan and I we find that our show we do that on our podcast. We have a topic and then one thing leads to another, and before you know it, we've like branched out into other things. And before we have so many things that we're talking about. Like today, we started out talking about babies, and now we're going Bell's palsy, and we're going to move on to Sailor and what you know. So all of these things, I I, I think you get more engagement when you are just open to what you to yeah talk about what you need to and what you purpose to be on there, but being open to discussing other things and just kind of going with the flow with that. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
And I don't know if you see the screen, but we have someone watching on the show who actually has Bell's palsy. So
Yeah.
this is that's fantastic. Hi, Teresa. And that is where I do want to make sure I'm not sure how long my turn is. So I just want to make sure before we move on to kind of maybe talk about a couple of the things that would signal a person to be like, hey, you know what? You have Bell's palsy, because it isn't a condition that you have time. It's not something where you're like, oh, okay, well, if I have Bell's palsy today, I'll still have it next week. So let's put it off and do the laundry and do everything else for everybody else before I get this
Right.
checked out. Bell's palsy is sudden onset. It'll cause drooping in the face. It's paralysis. So your muscle is getting paralyzed. So some people do think they're having a stroke, but the rest of your body is not affected. It is imperative that you get to the emergency room like now, like right away, because the sooner that you get the medication, which is antiviral medication and a steroid, such as prednisone, then you can slow down the damage that's going to happen to your face in the nerves. And that is something that I always make sure I say, like, there's no, oh, let's wait and see. Go immediately and get the medication and take the medication, then kind of do your research about everything else. There is a book called Fix My Face, and it's put out by the Foundation for Facial Recovery. I can send you guys a link to kind of post that. And it is a book put together by 5 medical doctors. And so it has all that information in it. There's lots of Facebook groups, like on any topic. There's lots of Facebook groups. There's lots of support out there, but you really need to be careful about where you're getting your facts and your information, especially about something like Bell's palsy, where the medical doctors and especially general practitioners don't have a lot of information. So, that is something to make sure, I always make sure to share. If you think that it's Bell's palsy, go to the hospital now, and especially as in, oh, it'll be fine, oh, I got stuff to do, but it's not something to mess around with.
Yeah. Teresa said she thought it was a stroke, and her first thought was her mom is going to kill her for stressing so much. She may have had a stroke. Oh my goodness. Well,
so it is generally brought on by stress, as any virus, of course, not caused by the stress, but the stress suppresses your immune system. And it is quite interesting to me. Every single person that I've talked to that's gotten Bell's palsy, it has been a stress coming from not using your voice or standing up for yourself. And being in a situation in life, highly stressful situation in life where you're doing everything for everyone else all the time and not using your voice or standing up for yourself. And, Louise Hay, of course, first thing I do, Google, metaphysical reason, why is this happening to me? Is, the anger, and you're not using your voice. So what happens? Your mouth gets paralyzed. So fascinating. And, something to not mess around with. It's stress, and we need to take care of ourselves first, so that we can be there for our families and our kids and everything.
Was it like a stinging sensation or like a pain or anything like that?
Some people do experience a little bit of pain. If pain does come on, it is possible that it's something else. Bell's palsy is not isn't painful.
Okay.
But it's a virus, so you can get like your ear can kind of hurt and stuff. But it's paralysis. So it's basically like my sound side, like my good side, felt puffy. This side, the paralyzed side, starts to droop, right? So you don't feel anything. Honestly, it's paralyzed. Like you can't feel it. So that's where people think that it's a stroke.
Wow. You said something that really just stood out to me. You said about it being stress really affecting it. When you don't use your voice and speak out, then your mouth gets paralyzed. Do you hear how profound that is? If you don't use your voice, now you're going to be paralyzed. You can't use it at all. So that is good to let people know. You got to speak up for you. You have to learn to say no. Like Teresa, she's stressed out with her 501c3 and all the families that she's trying to help. And kudos to you for that. But we don't do that, and we don't realize that it affects us in a number of ways. And viruses, although there is no antibiotic that you can take for a virus, viruses are the worst. And they run their course, and whatever they do in the interim while they are in your body is what they do. So let's prevent that from happening. So Barbie is giving you, if you start to feel something, hey, I go to the doctor. I go.
Absolutely.
Well, and it is fascinating. A couple months ago, I thought it was coming on again. And of course, I was freaking out. And I said to my husband, so this is my second marriage. And I said to my husband, I don't feel good. Like my whole side of my head hurt. And it ended up being a very mild case of shingles, just side note, is what my doctor said. But I had a headache and like touching, and I was like freaking out. And even though I speak about it on a very regular basis, I said to him, well, I'm just going to see how it is tomorrow. And he's like, are you kidding me? You literally what if this was one of your followers and messaged you? What would you say? Go to the ER right now. And I was like, okay. And I went. But that's what we do. That is literally what we do as women. Oh, it'll be okay. I'll just see how it is tomorrow.
Yeah. I'll just take some leave and lay down.
Yeah. And just lying there and thinking, I'm going to be so mad at myself if I don't go right now. So I went, and it ended up being a case of shingles. But my doctor did say, because this has happened to me, there is a higher chance it could happen again with stress and shingles like that. So go take the medication. Teresa's saying Bell's palsy can be caused by Lyme disease. That is true. So that antibiotics that can help Lyme disease obviously has other issues as well. So I hope that you're doing okay with that.
Right.
Lyme disease can be a real beast. But so definitely if it is Lyme disease, you'll definitely need to take antibiotics too. But Bell's palsy straight up is just is from a virus. Now you need to take the antivirals, and this book, as I was saying, Fix My Face, which I can send the links later, will tell you amounts to take. And the doctors who do specialize in it recommend taking higher not amounts, but for a longer period of time than a general practitioner at a hospital will. So that it is something that you can just download and take to your regular doctor.
Okay. Wow.
Interesting.
Sayla, you have been sitting there patiently, now taking it all in.
I'm taking it all in. I love conversations like this because, and I didn't know Barbie was going to be here, which is, I think is great because it makes the conversation more candid, and I'm connecting a lot of my own personal story to Barbie's story. And, there's just lots of really fun similarities that are just kind of happening. And I love that. I love it.
Yes.
Go right on in. Let's talk about it.
I was like, it's supposed to be like where, just girlfriends sitting on the couch being able to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And, it's like, it's all about like-mindedness, you know what I mean? Women who are really just into something. They are walking in their purpose. They are finding their purpose. They are finding their voice, being able to speak out. And as much as this is, like a podcast that centered around entrepreneurship, it also really is about the whole self. And so that's why this really just works. Cause when you were over here talking about not speaking, I was just looking into, what is it? It's the it's like a full body chart or something like that just recently. And it was like, so I'm a manifesting generator, and how like a lot of like what goes on is felt in my gut, and, you know, like my sacral is at all of this stuff. And I'm like, holy smokes, like that makes a lot of sense as to why, you know, I feel certain things, why like I'm definitely that one that keeps all the cortisol right in my stomach with this pouch because I stress, like, you know what I mean? So all of these things. So I appreciate and thank you at least for saying that, because I was like, you get the vibe. I'm glad that you feel welcome. And, you know, this is, yes, I was like, it wasn't necessarily like planned, but this worked out like perfectly.
No,
So,
I love it. I love it. And it's funny that you're talking about that, because like when you, Barbie, when you started talking about, what do you call it? What's this thing?
The seventh
I could
cranial
feel my
nerve.
jaw like tightening, like it's just like a
Right.
self-inflicted tighten, and I was like, oh, that sounds horrible. But I also had kind of like a similar experience coming into my own entrepreneurship. My first daughter is bilaterally deaf, and when I was 19, and so I was really young, and like kind of like yours was, it was like really just like sudden. It was just like in one day, my whole kind of like the whole existence of my future looked differently, and the whole existence of my daughter's future looked differently, and that was really hard to like try and grasp. And about what other people would say, you know, if she had hearing aids for a little while, and now she has cochlear implants, but she had hearing aids for the first 10 months of her life, and they would like flap around like dog ears because they were so big on her tiny little head, and she had the most petite, cute little ears. And so I was like, I gotta figure out, you know, the mom in me was like, this is a problem, I gotta fix it. So I was like, what can I do? And so I like, those little nylon headbands had started to become popular at that time, so I started making them, and they held them on just like so perfectly. And so that was my first entrepreneurial like experience. Was I just like loved making things, and not only was it like what's the word, like healing for me to be able to create something, you know, again, but it was healing beyond that, because at the time I also was struggling with postpartum depression and anxiety, and I just really needed an outlet, something that was only for me, and my little bow business was that thing for me. And so I am a huge what's the word, supporter of mothers getting that team that you were talking about earlier before the show, just because like that after the postpartum period is like is just as critical as the prenatal period. And if you don't have that support, if you don't have that like a plan of something, that process is so much more difficult than if you have a process or a plan and like people around you to support you and stuff. And so I found that in my business, and I found community and like my customers and stuff, and like I loved seeing other kids with my bows on. And I started doing like, you know, I had social media, and I went to markets, and, you know, I just loved it. I loved it. And I became obsessed with the back end of business and things like that. So I just kept like learning, and ended up taking a little break from that. I like to say that I outgrew that business. It just wasn't serving me anymore. So I stopped doing that business like 3 years into it. And that was really hard to say goodbye to it, because it was such like,
well, it's like your baby, right? You know,
but
that
it
it's
just like
entrepreneurships like that, and we grow
it just wasn't serving me anymore. And so I knew I needed to let it go, and I needed like, that just meant that it was time for something else. And so I kind of let that feeling linger for a little bit, to like let the uncomfortable be so I could try and get some, you know, relevation or revelation, whatever, revelation. And so I took a little break there for a little bit, and then I had some friends that started a skincare business, and I started to help them, and they were like, you know what, we kind of need someone. I was doing their social media at the time, and I was moving to Utah, and so they were like, well, you can't do social media anymore because you're not here to take pictures and stuff. So could you do our email marketing? And that's when I kind of became an email marketer, is what I like to say. I don't think I said that at the beginning, but I'm an email marketing coach.
Okay.
I help small business owners with their email marketing strategy and learning their platforms and problem solving the integration between social media and their email marketing. And I've been doing that for almost 2 years. And I helped that business grow 1,000% in a year with their email marketing. 40% of their monthly sales were coming from email marketing. And I have loved every second of it.
Yeah.
Except for of this like feeling of needing to do something that I can't put words to, right? And I had felt that before when I had stopped that previous business. And that kind of happened last October again, where I was like, I'm not really sure that this is really serving me anymore. And so I kind of had to like take another step back. And I think that's why I love entrepreneurship so much, because it's just a constant like self-learning, you're just constantly self-evaluating and trying to progress. And I just think there's no better way to like become a better person than to own a business, honestly. I don't know if you feel that same way, Barbie, but like I feel like I have grown so much as an individual in the last, like 9 years as a business owner than I have, I mean, before that I was a teenager, so
you absolutely learn so much about yourself because and how to count on yourself, because my mom, my parents were both entrepreneurs, and my mom was an entrepreneur, and like I said, I worked with her for a big chunk of my career, and she calls it fly by the seat of your pants university. So entrepreneurship really is like that. You're not ready, like it's like motherhood in a lot of ways too. You can read everything that you want, and then you throw yourself in there, and it's your own personal baby. You can't put words to that, like you're saying, to the amount of effort and pride and heartbreak and your worthiness is all tied up in it, especially now when there's social media out there too, where now you're out there talking about your business. So if you do fail, whether you choose to see it as a failure or not, now everybody sees it happening. So there's so many different levels to it now, and it is definitely something that motherhood,
it's a lot harder to be vulnerable in that way now because of that fear of failure. And I've kind of had to adopt this mentality of this whole experience of life is just an experiment. It's neither failing nor succeeding. It's just like we're just trying new things all the time. And that I tell my clients that all the time with their email marketing. It's like, if that didn't work, you try something else. Like there's no room, you don't get to say that, oh, that didn't work. Like,
you gotta keep on moving.
Work.
And
you learn something from that. And there's always something happening in your business that you can learn from. It's just that mindset of making sure that you are there and watching, right? And waiting for that learning experience to come so that when it does happen, you can go, oh, I know exactly what happened. I know what I need to do next time, and I can keep moving forward, right?
Try it differently next time.
And then you don't get stuck in this like, oh, I did a horrible job, I'm like a failure, and it's like connecting to your self-worth, instead of just like the mindset of being a learner, right?
And I love that.
That's been some on.
You just dropped the gem there.
I love that. And
you dropped a gem right there.
Yeah.
I was reading the other day, it was reminded of I don't know the exact quote, but just that failure is actually a human concept. It doesn't actually exist. So where you're saying, okay, yeah, you know what, you have this thing that you tried and it didn't work. Well, failure is a human concept. So reframing it, like you're saying, learning experience, blah, 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 the universe stepping in, maybe it wasn't the right thing, maybe it's the wrong thing. Who cares? Failure is not actually a thing. It doesn't exist unless you choose to allow it to exist.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
I
that's
think that
what I
allows
think
us to be better
I
parents too.
Oh
yes.
Like if
Yes.
you think about that, even with our kids, and like really trying to like build that self-esteem and understanding that, listen, like it's okay to make mistakes, and like honestly, here in the house is where you want to make them. I'd rather you make them here than out there, because not everyone is that, understanding out there, but here we can work it out. We can, we can problem solve. So,
Mhm.
Try at least, exactly. Take a
Yeah.
stab at it.
Yeah.
I like what you said, Sayla, about recognizing when that business of making the bands was no longer serving you.
Yes.
That was actually you being pushed to a different level,
Mhm.
expand and expand yourself and to grow, because you were talking about growth and progress. And some people, entrepreneurs, don't recognize when it's time to move to something that's going to challenge you and force you to think outside the box or try something that you may have been afraid to. So what are you being pushed to now? Are you still going to try to make this work when it's not serving you and it's not doing anything? Or are you going to go to something greater that's going to give you greater purpose, greater growth, greater expansion, and take you and open up a new world that you didn't even know existed, like a new era, a new place that you didn't even know that you would love, or not, I didn't even know I would be interested in it. Didn't even know that I would want to do that. I think about me with working in surgery and loving everything about it, but then switching over to still working in surgery, but now I'm the education side of it. I didn't know that I would enjoy doing that part. And then now all the boards, all the committees, all the traveling, like, whoa, this is when I really was trying not to do any of that. Like, no, I'm good. I'll just stay right here. I'm okay. Like, no, but you're being pushed to do something greater. So as entrepreneurs, we need to recognize that. You have to see when that stuff is happening, and don't just think, oh, I'm just having a bad day, let me just take a break and then I'll pick it back up. And then you take a break and you pick it back up and it's the same thing. Well, that's probably your sign you're done with that. So I like that you said that and recognize that you need to move on to something else.
Right. And I like the fact too that it also was something that was almost like completely different. I like to say, I've worn a lot of different hats, and the conversation has always been like, do you really know what you're doing? Or, it seems like you're all over the place. And so, being able to understand that flexibility that's necessary within entrepreneurship, because like you said, it really is about learning yourself. You find out that there are things that you can do. You find out that there, are things that you like and that you're really good at, that honestly, if you were working, a 9 to 5, and this doesn't knock anyone who does it, but if you were working that, you might not have been able to discover that because it doesn't give you the room to really explore your abilities or to do things the way that you might even do them. That was, I think, one of the main reasons that catapulted me into entrepreneurship. It was that I was working with and for a lot of people who had really never done my job, or wasn't doing it as efficiently as I was doing it, or that I could be doing it. And I felt stifled in a sense of not being able to even bring myself to the table. It was like, just too cookie cutter. And it's like, what's the point of having an employee if they can't be themselves? Like, the point of having someone work with you is for them to bring their special to the table. So if you're not allowing them to shine in that way, then kind of what's the point?
Well,
And
you might
that's
as well just do
typically
all
why
your-
people
Yeah, exactly.
quit jobs anyway, mismanagement.
Mhm.
It's really hard to grow when you can't be creatively mindful, and especially in a 9 to 5 that's pretty constricting. You have, I have this thing I need you to do, and then this thing, and it has to be within these guidelines, and I really do believe that that the natural human tendency is to create. And so when we're limiting that, I think it really does have a direct link to like our genuine happiness. And so I really believe that entrepreneurship is just one ways that like happiness and in my and being a mom is like really draining, right? But I get to have this own little thing that's mine, you know, and allows me to be creatively, you know, exceptional and like trying new things and like, you know, and that's really where you grow too, is where you're creatively making decisions and trying to decide between, you know, whatever this is and whatever that is, you know, if I want to do this post or that post, you know, those just even those little decisions that you get to make, I think really make you as a human being happier. And so I like to tell people, like, if you've had an idea, like, you should just go do it, you know, like, what are you actually afraid of? Because if you can get to why you're actually afraid of it, are you afraid of failure or are you afraid of being vulnerable? Because those two things are all about your mind, your mindset. You know, they're never actually about what anyone else is going to do. It's all about your control over what's going on in your head and how you decide you're going to perceive other people's, you know, perceptions of you and stuff like that. So there's a lot that I could go into, but I won't. But you could say that my entrepreneurship is really what saved my enjoyment of motherhood too, because it's just been a really great outlet for me. And I really encourage, if there's a mom out there that's listening, that's like, I've had this idea, sure, do it. Just do it. Be much happier and failing than not trying at all.
And that there's no rush, you know, for you, like you're saying, like, I think a lot of times too with moms, you know, we're tired and we're, you know, I mean, the lack of sleep, I mean, that postpartum stuff, like, that's no joke. That whole, like, that 6 months after you have a baby, I tell all the, you know, new moms and anybody I can talk to, like, anybody would be depressed and anxious if you're not sleeping. Like, if anybody goes and you literally don't sleep for 6 months, and then and if that person just hadn't had a baby, would anybody be shocked that you're depressed and anxious half the time, jumping up the walls? Like, no. So it's a human beings can't function without sleep. That's why it's like a torture mechanism, you know, and
that's just one of the multiple things that are going on at that time.
Other hormones and all the things. So
not only that, you're like sustaining another human life.
All the things.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
On your own, you're like sustaining another human. Like, that's crazy.
And being like, what?
I'm so glad you guys are saying this, because I literally right before I logged in, I was on the phone with a client and I was literally having this conversation, and I was like, listen, hold on. We need to like revamp some things for this postpartum plan here, because like, I'm not even going to feel good getting back on a plane going home if we don't have certain things. And I was like, nope. Like, so no, I was like, I appreciate this. I'm definitely going to make sure I send this to her so that she can, you know, hear this as well. But can you touch a little bit on like that I don't want to even say that mom guilt, but it typically ends up coming with that balance of, like you said, it does allow you to enjoy motherhood, because if all you had to do all day was your kids, it would drive you crazy. Like, because you're managing so much, and at no point in time is there like a timeout for you to go regulate all the things that you're feeling and dealing, like, because you're human as well. And a lot of people we don't give ourselves as moms grace in that human department. So can you talk about that, you know, that, like I said, that balance, but then, you know, dealing with that mom guilt and understanding that it's okay if you're good at something or you feel good about what you're doing, because it's allowing you to have that outlet. Like, talk about that for a bit.
Yeah, you know, I'm glad we're talking about this, because I feel like it's something that kind of assumed a lot of times when when moms are in business. And like, I think that a lot of moms, maybe even there's probably some, I know personally, that they don't feel any guilt at all, you know, and they feel drawn to just running their, and like that's their bread and butter, you know, and like that's how they're providing for their family. But like for me, like, yeah, like mom guilt's real for sure. I mean, it happens even outside of like me working. Like, I feel guilty when I leave them to go on vacation with my husband, you know. Like it doesn't matter if it's business or if it's personal, you know, it's always going to be just a mindset thing again. And it's like, okay, my time is valuable with my kids. Yes. My time needs to be spent here with me by myself, and it also needs to be spent with my husband. And so when I separate those three things and go, if I don't get time with myself to be creatively, like have a creative outlet, then I will not enjoy being with my husband or with my kids, which makes that whole time a waste, right? And so, I mean, this is even day to day, right? Where I'm like, you know what? How do I feel today? Am I really wanting to spend time with my kids? Or do I really need to just kind of like self-care today? And like, do I need to send the kids to a babysitter? You know, like, do I need to sit down and like creatively just work it out, you know, and things like that? And some people aren't able to do that, you know, and some people just kids at home, which is fine. Netflix is one of our nannies. I'm not afraid to say that, you know, but there's just, that's my time now is this time that I'm spending now going to help me value that spending with these other people more intentionally. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I really like that description because
I do.
Yeah, it's a valuable reason to be spending that time. And I do think that it isn't, you know, is important. This is something I've learned, you know, my kids are 18 and 16 now. And I'm, you know, I still have that kind of, oh, you know, what if I, you know, they need to do something or whatever. And it is important. And it is important for us to also something to tell us to teach our kids that, hey, these are the things that I've learned. And this is, you know, my time of allotting time. It's a priority that I've spent time on my relationship with that. It's a priority, you know, so that later in life, now your kids will be like, oh, you know, they taught me that as well.
I like that.
I grew up with entrepreneurial parents as well. And like my dad is an orchardist, an apple orchardist. And then my mom had a little sewing business where she made hooded bath towels for a really long time. And I remember being so proud of my mom, and like she worked so hard and she was doing really well. And she stopped one day because she was sad every time that her kids came into the room and said, Mom, I want to go swimming or something. And she was like, I've got to work or something. She felt bad about it. And then she couldn't get past that. And I kind of like, now that I'm a mom myself, it kind of hurt me a little bit that she couldn't work through that herself to be able to just give her, because I admired that about her. I admired as a child that she was working hard and that she was creating something, and like it was successful, you know, and she enjoyed it. And I loved seeing her happy. And then knowing I felt guilty that it was she had to stop doing that. And so that's kind of been something that I've had to be very vocal about to my kids, you know, and say, hey, this is why I like to work, is because it makes me feel good because I'm helping other people and I'm, you know, I can create beautiful emails and, you know, it's like, that doesn't sound very fun, but I do enjoy it.
No, but I do think that you're being open and communicating with your kids.
Yeah, because I do think that is really important to have that open communication with your kids, and so that they don't feel like those, like your kids and your work are tethered together in your decision making. you know, and I mean, they are, but not so much so that you have to give up one for things.
Or if your family situation is that case and you do have to give up one for the other, it's also okay to say, hey, you know what? You know, for any moms listening, like, mom's got to work. I have to pay the bills. These are the things I have to do. It's not because I don't love you. And those are the things that I think our generation is doing a better job at, is just communicating those things. Like, let's just talk about it. Whereas, you know, 40 years ago, and our parents, et cetera, they just did the things and kids were just there, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But now us moving forward, you know, just communicate, and whether that ends up being something that they talk about in therapy later when they're 40 or not, at least they know what the real story is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you can find a, no, I was going to say, if you could find a way to integrate your kids as well, you know what I mean? There are times where, like, you know, I'm in the middle of doing something and I'm like, you know what, you know, this one wants to do this. This one wants to do this. Okay. You know what, guys, right now I have this catering. I needs to get out the door soon. Like, how about you do this and you do this? And now this is still me being able to spend time with them without feeling like you were saying, you know, hold and having
exactly. It's a communication thing, and so everybody kind of is in the loop. And I think that that's the most important thing. I think that a lot of times we think of kids as, oh, they're just kids, and they're not. They need to understand as much information. They'll process the information that they're ready to process, and just be aware of the situation so that they feel in the loop as well, just like we would want if the roles were reversed.
Yeah. And kids nowadays understand a whole lot more than we give them credit for. They see a lot more than we think they see, and I know with my daughter, she's 9. My youngest is 9, and I'm still trying to get her to understand that when I'm working. So she thinks that when I stop teaching class, I'm done. Like, no, I'm still working. I still have work that needs to be done. But when I stop, when she's watching the clock, so she knows when it's time for me to get off. So she's like, okay, mom, you're done, right? So then now I shift and let's do this. So she's patient to wait for that and understands, if my mom doesn't work, then we're not going to have lights on. We're not going to eat.
And that's important to, you know, to communicate. Yeah.
Yeah. And she waits, even though she doesn't want to, she waits.
I think those boundaries are also really good to have for yourself, because I think it helps control that mom guilt as well, where it's like, if I am sitting in this space, right, mentally, I am here, and this is the only place where I am going to work. Everywhere else, I'm a mom, right? But this right here, this space is where my boundary is. This is where, like, I really do think that spaces hold specific energy. This is my space to be creative, because I have built it to be that way. And my kids know that. They know that if I'm sitting over here, like, I'm working. And so they'll say, when are you going to be done? You know, and then I can say, give me 10 minutes or whatever it is. And then I'll finish up. And then when I leave, I'm gone. I turn in my brain off. I'm back into mom mode. And that really has helped me, because before, for like 6 months, I was doing work at the kitchen counter, and it drove me crazy. It drove me crazy, and probably my kids as well, because I was just constantly, like, switching sides of my brain, business and then mom, business and then mom, and then business for a little while. And then, like, it would just agitate me so much that I'd, like, you know, what's the word? Lash out. I would lash out at my kids because they were interrupting what I was doing. And that makes it really hard. And so having those boundaries, just even for yourself, you know, or like those visual boundaries, like my little space right here for your kids to know, hey, mom is working. And I've found that to be super helpful in how I mom guilt as well. So
yeah. I like that. I'm going to incorporate that, because I was the one that would, after I'm done here, I would unplug the laptop and I would take it in my bedroom, because I'm going to sit up and I'm going to work on some stuff. So then now, not only is my office space, my office space is where I work. I work in the room too, where she sees that as, I'm going to come in here and hang out with mom, and the mom is still sitting on the computer.
Yeah, they feel like they're being ignored. So I do like that kind of mental.
Yeah,
mental
absolutely,
idea.
absolutely.
I'm going to incorporate that as well. Oh my. All right. Well, Any last moment? The time just runs by so quickly. Before
It
you
does.
on here over an hour. What last minute nuggets would you want to give to the viewers today, Barbie? I'm going to start with you.
Well, I think just to like kind of sum up a lot of what we've been talking about today, motherhood and entrepreneurship is just to give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. You can't do all the things for all the people all the time. Use your voice, stick up for yourself, say when you need a break, and give yourself a goddamn break sometimes.
I know
You're doing fine. Right. You're doing the best you can. You
talking to me because I'm working on that. I'm doing a little bit better, but I am not there. I'm like the worst on myself. Sayla, what would you give to those watching today?
My last little bit of advice is to take the leap. Be vulnerable. Be yourself. And in yourself. Because if you can't believe in yourself, then there's not really a place to grow. That's where the most individual is, when you are working towards more confidence and understanding what makes you tick. And I do think that entrepreneurship is the best way to do that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Well, it was such a pleasure having the both of you on. Thank you so much for being with us this evening and sharing all this good information that I'm going to apply to myself starting today. So when I'm done here, I'm shutting this laptop down and this deuces. I'm done.
Yes, awesome.
That's what I'm going to do. Because I was like, I need to get this done. Yeah, I'm not doing that.
It'll be there tomorrow. Yeah, it'll wait.
It sure will. So it's been great. All right, y'all, we're going to have to close out this show for the evening. Thank you so much for joining. If you have not subscribed to the House of Peach, that QR code is there on the screen. That way you'll know when we're live. You'll get all the info on us and where we will be and what's going on. We don't want you to miss out. Share this so people will know. If you are a female entrepreneur and you haven't been on our show, we want you to come on. We want to have a conversation. You see how it is. We're like laid back. We have a good time. It's like girlfriends just sitting having a conversation. Get your wine, get your coffee, your tea, whatever you want. I have tea right here. Your water, whatever. And come on, and we're going to have a very great conversation. So join us again on next Tuesday at the same time on all of our platforms. See, we have people from all over the United States. Well, actually, all over the world, because we've had guests from multiple countries come on. So we're not limiting ourselves to the U.S. There are other places, other female entrepreneurs and women that are doing great things that we want to highlight and bring them on. So have a great rest of your week and a wonderful weekend. And we will see you back next Tuesday at the same time.
See you later. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. That was wonderful, ladies.
It was really nice.
You too.
Yeah, I'm so extra. Express myself, I'm next up. Yeah, more juice. Coming up. Yeah, come on.